Greetings and hello. This is Ayya Phalanyani speaking from Germany, from Anenja Vihara. I'm hoping that you're all well, and I would say we sit a few moments in silence just to get into it, into the topic of today, into the topic of upekka. Just for a few minutes, let's breathe slowly and peacefully. And usually when we meditate together, we go a little bit through our body together and look at the tensed spots and relax them. So do that today individually. Check your shoulders. Check in your face, your forehead, your chin, and your belly, of course, that it's all relaxed. And just breathe in and breathe out. With the aim for the breath to come, to calm down, so that you get settled wherever you are. Hi to all. That was a very brief meditation only. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Today's topic, I don't know who it was, but there was the request that I do speak on equanimity today. And I think that's a great and wonderful idea. Equanimity is tremendously important in our lives as Buddhists. So it's good to know about it. It's good to understand what it is and what we need to do to get there. And I think that was the question. What is equanimity and how to get there? And the word in Pali is upekka. Upekka is translated into English as equanimity. I think that's mainly the word used in English. This, again, I have to excuse myself. You have to bear up with me. Oh, I having the Lyme disease. I have contracted. I had contact with a tick, and it has infected me with the Lyme disease. So I'm very slow in thinking, and that is today not because I'm so so profoundly tranquilized by meditation. It's just that my brain is so, it's kind of numb. I I don't know things, but still, I think it's possible to say something about upekka, equanimity. Bodarucci says, some say it's the easiest, others say it's the hardest. I would be with those who say it's the hardest. It's definitely not an easy task to have equanimity. If we want to have equanimity in the way the Buddha describes it, so we can have maybe equanimity of some form in worldly terms. That is for sure. That might be easy for some people at least, but it is the hardest because it is one of the highest goals, and in it is of tremendous importance in our practice. So there would, for example, not be the option for us to become enlightened if there were not some sort of equanimity. It might not be the equanimity as as the Buddha had, the paramata. That is maybe only the equanimity of a Buddha. So we might be happy enough to experience equanimity, real equanimity, and that might help us to get to continue on our path. So equanimity or upekka is mentioned in various suttas and in various you see, now I don't know things, but I remember it's mentioned in the Brahma Viharas, for example. It's the fourth of the four Brahma Viharas. That is metta, karuna, mudita, and upekka. So loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. Then we have it in the 10 paramis. And there also, it is one of the last mentioned. It is the last mentioned. Then we find it in the Bojjhangas. And there also, it's at the end of the list. At the end of the list of the Bojjhangas, we find upekka. So then, where else do we have it? Most importantly, so we have it in the suttas where it is about the third and the fourth jhana. Upekha is a factor of the jhanas, the third and the fourth. So, and there might be some kind of seven factors, yes, the Bojjhanga, seven factors of enlightenment. I think I didn't say the English word, thanks, Igor. So the seven factors of enlightenment, the Bojjhangas. There it is also as one of not one of the last, but the last for before enlightenment. So then what is upekka? Is it equanimity? In what sense? So we have, for example, patience. It's not the same. Patience and equanimity do support each other. Patience, if you have patience, that is very, very beneficial to get into equanimity. And once you have some equanimity, that helps you to stabilize your patience. But as much as they depend on each other, they are not the same. So I don't think it's so important to work out the difference between them, but to really focus on that one subject, that upekka. So having equanimity, what does it mean? Having upekka, what does that mean? Having upekka, or dwelling in, it is rather be said, because it's a mind state. It's a state, it's a chitta, it's a mind state. We dwell in those states. We dwell in upekka. It's not a vedana, it's not a fleeting state that is pops up and goes away. In that, khanti and upekka are both the same. They are not fleeting states. They are staying with us for a little while. I mean, in the beginning, we can experience short moments of upekka, of equanimity, and but for it to be real equanimity, it should last. It should last a little bit longer. It shouldn't just be a second of, oh yeah, now I'm so equanimous, and then I have an experience that bothers me, and then I explode out of anger. So that is said because I want to mention, of course, it's not just a thing, a momentary thing. But we have to make a lot of moments of equanimity one after the other, so that it becomes a dwelling. An abidance, a state of mind that we abide in. As for example, as it is said in when it's talked about the Brahma Viharas. It is upekka sahagatena cetasa. So you get into this state of equanimity. And you see me fighting for it now. Because I really don't know things. And then while I'm talking, I have to search for words and observe the mind, and wanting to get nervous and wanting to say, well, I can't talk about the Dhamma today. And then calm down and settle down and say, no, just be at peace, be at ease, and just talk. So you see me fighting for it, for equanimity. And people who have sicknesses are called patients, because the first thing is, when we have something that bothers us, that is not up to the norm, that is kind of sickness or illness, we become impatient. We don't want it. So there we need endurance. We need to sit with it. We need to bear up with it. And that we need to learn to bear up with it. And once we learn to bear up with it, we can stabilize it. We can stabilize our mind wanting to go and wanting to judge, wanting to react towards what we do not like. So we do not go there. We do not go to what we feel compelled reacting to. But with patience, we restrain ourselves. We refrain from getting involved, what is pulling us. So with that, we are becoming more stable. And this stability is the beginning of upekka. There is where upekka starts, the equanimity, the real equanimity of the Buddha's teaching. And there are several places in the suttas where the Buddha talks about the real equanimity that is. Let me just grab one book. I'm always talking about the Vajrabhava Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 4, where we have talked about it when we spoke about anxieties and how to deal with that. And that is the way of training, for example, equanimity. So the Buddha explains how he worked with his fears. And he said, when I was walking, I didn't stop and look if there was a sound or so. I didn't turn around. When I sat, I didn't stand up and go look. When I was lying, I was not sitting down or walking around. So this was a training for equanimity, to bear the urge to react to the sound and to the shock that might be there, or to what bothers us. So we learn to be patient and not to react anymore. And then by doing that, he was so calmed down that then by tireless energy that was aroused and unremitting mindfulness was established, my body was tranquil and untroubled, my mind concentrated and unified. It is said here in the sutta. And then he enters the first jhana. There's not too much equanimity. There's some sort of stillness, of course, but there are, as we were saying when we talked about the jhanas, there is still applied and sustained thought. So there is a mental activity beyond mere knowing, beyond mere, how's that word again? Sanya in Pali. Perception. So sanya, perception, is a mental activity. And in the first jhana, the mental activity is more gross, is beyond that. So, but there is still, although there is a high concentration and a lot of mindfulness, there is still no equanimity. And there can be a lot of excitement and joy and happiness, and we can have goosebumps and be happy. And then the second jhana, still, although it is more subtle than the first, is still not equanimous. There are still some movement of the mind beyond mere knowing, beyond mere perception. But there is still this this rapture and pleasure that is born of concentration. So then, when the concentration even gets higher than that, and we can let go of the nice feeling of the second jhana, of the rapture, and of the joy thereof that can arise, then we can experience real equanimity. An equanimity that is still not the purest form possible. An equanimity where still bodily pleasure can be experienced. So beyond that, in the fourth jhana, when there's more knowing, perceiving, but no more going to any reaction, no more going to any disturbance. There's nothing left more but stillness. And this stillness, there is really equanimity. And this is what can lead us then to either the abhinyas. Real equanimity is leading to the abhinyas. It's funny that I remember more the Pali words than the English. Are the not the miracle, the supernatural, superhuman states. So the superhuman knowledge. There is another sutta that I selected for today where it talks about that in more detail. I'm not too sure if I'll be able to read that out, but there is the nearness of equanimity to those abhinyas, to those superhuman knowledges, where you can direct the mind to knowing of the mind of others, or to knowing your karma by knowing your former lives, or you can direct it towards knowing a mind as defiled when it is defiled, or knowing a pure mind when it is pure, and so forth. So you understand, after having experienced upekha, you might experience those states. Not necessarily. Not all people who have upekha can really do that. But it is possible that when you experience real upekha, in the way the Buddha describes it in the suttas, then that would become possible. There is, for example, I think, first go to the Anguttara Nikaya. There is a teaching in brief. This is such a great sutta. It is Samyutta Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, the book of 8, sutta number 63. In brief, it's called, and it's vast, it's expansive, it's very, very informative also. So there, a bhikkhu comes to the Blessed One and paid homage and asked the Buddha, can you teach me the Dhamma in brief? And the Buddha calls him, well, some people just want to hear the Dhamma and then they start following me around. So he says to them, well, if I teach you, then practice. Well, and the man asks again, please teach me the Dhamma in brief. So then Buddha says, in that case, bhikkhu, you should train yourself. My mind will be firm and well settled internally. Arisen, bad, unwholesome states will not obsess my mind. Thus should you train yourself. So that is the first training in the direction of equanimity. That is not equanimity in itself, but it leads into the direction. So here we get explained. We are explained, we are told that if we settle our mind and be firm with the mind settled, and we do not attend the unwholesome states and get not obsessed with wanting or with liking and disliking, then that leads us in the right direction. So this is the first training. Train yourselves to let go of liking and disliking. Accept things as they are. That's a first step. Then, when your mind is firm and well settled internally and arisen bad and wholesome states do not obsess your mind, then you should train yourself thus. I will develop and cultivate the liberation of the mind by loving kindness and make it a vehicle, a basis, carry it out, consolidate it, and properly undertake it. So this is one way. The Buddha then, in the next parts of that sutta, goes about to say the same thing about the other Brahma Viharas. But I'm going to read a little bit more. When this concentration has been developed and cultivated by you in this way, then you should develop this concentration with thought and examination. You should develop it without thought and with examination only. You should develop it without thought and examination. You should develop it with rapture. You should develop it without rapture. You should develop it accompanied by comfort, and you should develop it accompanied by equanimity. That paragraph says you should do loving kindness, or because I don't want to repeat with the other Brahma Viharas, you should train the Brahma Viharas, make them your vehicle, train them, carry them out, consolidate them, and properly undertake them. And then you should go into the jhanas by practicing them. So this paragraph that I have read last is about the jhanas, which conclude in the sentence, you should develop it accompanied by equanimity. That would refer to the fourth jhana. When, Bhikkhu, this concentration has been developed and well developed by you in this way, then you should train yourselves thus. I will develop and cultivate the liberation by compassion, altruistic joy, mind of equanimity. So, and I think this makes perfect sense to use the Brahma Viharas, to use loving kindness as a basis for the others to arise. Once you have loving kindness, metta, as a base, and you can dwell in it, you can even go into the jhanas. But even if you can't, if you have that as your basis, and you have an open heart full of loving kindness, then compassion can arise, or sympathetic, altruistic joy can arise when needed. And stillness, what would not be like, well, I don't care, but real equanimity. So you train, you could, as one path, I Come here, Ankur. You can ask questions. Today's topic is equanimity, upekka. Your question is a little bit vague, so I wouldn't comment on that question because we're on a topic today. So, oh, I see Buddha Ruchi has also written something, and I haven't read it. So, let me continue with this here. When this is trained, these four Brahma Viharas, when we have a strong concentration and can dwell in those states, and when we can be in a state of equanimity, free from a mind that is going here and there, wanting this and that, free from the worldly affairs, free from sadness and fear and anger and all these things. And even if that is only momentarily, then we continue. When this concentration has been developed, well developed by you in this way, then you should train yourself thus. I will dwell contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed loving, longing and dejection in regard to the world. So we go deeper and deeper. And this part, the last paragraph that I just read, is further explained in another sutta. I'm not too sure if I find it today, but there the contemplation of the body is used as a vehicle to upekka. Here in this sutta, it's the four Brahma Viharas that are the vehicle to equanimity. In this other sutta, I think I'm having it right here, that would be in this. No, it's not that. I think. Oh, you must bear up with me today. I'm so sorry. It's with this Lyme disease. It's affecting the brain so much. I think maybe it's this one. No, but that is another way of putting it. Maybe I find the one sutta that I was talking of, but here it is in the Salayatana Samyutta. So Samyutta Nikaya 35, and there it is, number 94, untamed, unguarded. And there the Buddha speaks about how we can get to equanimity by observing the six sense bases, by guarding them. So that would be one way. Another way, guarding the six sense bases. And we actually have read the verses of that sutta. And here the Buddha speaks about when we tame our mind and we guard it and we protect our mind well, And when not only the mind, also, of course, the other of the six sense bases, but very, very strongly also the mind and the mind sense base. So then the mind settles down, calms down, and makes an end of suffering in the end. So thank you, God, for your encouragement. Another way, I will come to your question, Victoria, in a minute. Another way of possibly developing it would be by working with the Asubha practices. That is now the sutta that I can't find. And the using the Asubha practicing and being just well and fine with that, watching what occurs in the mind. And I have looked it up. I I don't know why I don't find it, because I really looked it up because we were speaking about death last week and how to deal with death. So in that sutta is actually the contemplation of Asubha and the contemplation on death, one way to gain equanimity. But we spoke about that practice, but I just wanted to give you the number of that sutta. Well, if I'm lucky, I come across that sutta. It's not. The sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, in the Book of Threes, 101, the soil remover, is also about gaining equanimity. And here it's nicely put how real equanimity would feel. It's about equanimity, although the word equanimity is not mentioned in that sutta itself, but it refers definitely and absolutely to a state of total equanimity. Here, I'm going to read that little paragraph, but because there comes a time when his mind becomes internally steady, composed, unified, and concentrated. That concentration is peaceful and sublime, gained by full tranquilization and attained to unification. It is not reined in and checked by, forcefully suppressing the defilements. Then, there being a suitable basis, he is capable of realizing any state realizable by direct knowledge towards which he might incline his mind. So, steady, composed, unified, and concentrated. The concentration is peaceful and sublime, gained by full tranquilization and attained to unification, and not by force, not by forcing down the defilements. That means, and that now we come to your question, Victoria. How do you practice upekka? I practice upekka by watching the present moment. That is always my practice in for whatever I want to achieve. That would be my practice to observe the present moment and to try really not, of course, follow after liking and disliking. So to give up the hindrances by observing the present moment. You know, when we have the mind set to observe the present moment, and we train it to be just there in that present moment, then you can, in some moments, experience really weird things in, in a sick body or in a sick mind, but you're just observing it and you're not judging it. So, observing the present moment, you can check on for former talks of mine, which are a little bit more fluent than today's talk, maybe. But I think I talked about observing the present moment already, but it's worthwhile mentioning it again. So we train our mind to see what is going on in our mind. When we're breathing in, we know we're breathing in. When we breathe out, we know we're breathing out. When we're nervous, when we're anxious, we know it because we look at it. But we do not, and that is the most important part, we do not follow after. So if I, today, with the mind that I'm having through having a Lyme disease, if I were following after what is going on in my mind and freaking out by all the blanks that I have and no, then I would be distracted. I would not be in the present moment anymore. But I'm observing, talking, searching for words, remembering, blank. So whatever arises when there's a sound, you say hearing, hearing, or you know, hearing, hearing, hearing. In daily life, you might not be able to name it every time, but in meditation, you can do so. So whatever arises, you name it. When there's a fear, you say scared, scared, or fearful, fearful. When there's a pain, you say suffering, suffering, suffering. When there's a thought, you say thinking, thinking, thinking. Always until this sensation is gone away. So that is a practice that you can do during your day, during whatever you are doing, your daily activities. You can focus, for example, during activities to your hand and know, I'm touching this glass, for example. I'm touching it. You know touching. You know lifting. You know moving it towards the mouth. you would know moving. Then you shift your focus and know drinking. You feel the cold in the mouth, and you feel you know the swallowing. So every little detail, even in each and every little daily activity, you can know and you can name. In the beginning, this will make you nervous and think, "Ooh, this is not leading to tranquility." But after a certain time, this can make you so tranquil because you're just observing and you're not getting entangled anymore. You're not getting involved with things because you just observe. There's not even an observer anymore. There's just the observed as it is. Nothing more than that. And that, of course, you can do in meditation also. You can do that while you walk and put your attention on the foot or while sitting on the breath. Igor, good question. Yes. What does it mean? Well, I have to share that question with others. Dear Ayya, what does it mean to develop equanimity to one direction and the second and to the third and to the fourth in the same way, above, below, across and everywhere and all around? That is a formula that is used when we are talking about the Brahma Viharas, and it's the four sublime abidings, for example. That's a chanting that we often do, and we have talked about this phrase quite sometimes already in the Wednesday talks. And it means that you have developed this equanimity within your mind and that you dwell in it. And so once it is there in a subtle or way, then you can just let it expand. It's possible that you can, I'm not a friend of sending out, but it's rather radiating, and you don't have to do anything, because if you do something, you're with the doing. And so developing equanimity in the four directions would be that there is nothing in any of the directions. It's not the four, it's the 10 directions, no? So in any direction, there would be nothing that can disturb you. There would be nothing that would get you out of your stillness, that would attract you. So you sit there just still. But even though you sit there in total stillness and equanimity, even if you do nothing, if somebody, and when you experience or develop this equanimity and somebody would come close, they would know, they would feel that this equanimity radiates all around you, and they would feel something, some kind of sensation they would know. And I think we have been talking about that you can develop it either in the 10 directions or as expansive, like the roots of a tree or so. And the first thing you have to do is to develop it. And the rest happens by itself. Then you don't need to do anything anymore. Just let equanimity be there, not ruin it by something. Does that answer your question enough? Because I'm through. I'm not able to continue any longer for today. I'm so sorry. I'm giving into sickness, going back to bed now. I hope you don't have any further questions. If you like, I can talk about some of the suttas that I have looked up for today. We can talk about them next week, okay? Thank you so much. Yes, well, I don't know how long that takes. I'm now on antibiotics for 2 weeks. Still several days to go. It's quite fresh. Okay, Victoria, then tune in next week. We'll continue with the topic, and I hope you all will be well, and also I will be more clear next week. Bye bye. All the best.